always on the radio. Shut up, it's Gaming Focused Audio.
Welcome to the Big Week in Gaming podcast, and what do you know, it's been a big week in gaming. I'm integot for episode 44 on Sunday the 16th of May 2021. As always, I'm joined by the official P3 nominated and approved Xbox Hall of Famer and #1 challenger to the throne of the greatest Xbox RPG player in the world, Swinny.
Hello.
And the game-loving, grind-hating, pretend-to-quit coffee-drinking, gamer, anti-gamer, and slightly less interrupter-in-chief, Mike. Mike, are you there? Mike, where are you, man?
Hello.
Mike. Okay, so for anyone that's tuning in, we had technical issues and we have balked the start of the show. So the intro is gone. It's dead. It's my fault. I do blame Mike.
All those nuggets of quality content that Mike delivered is lost to the ether.
I've always thought of myself as being very good under pressure, but obviously that's been proven incorrect today, where Mike had a very tight timeline and we did a very tight show, and then we realized maybe 20 minutes into the intro that we weren't recording it in one of our software. And then in the other one, which is the backup, listening to the audio recording, it was botched.
Botched week in gaming.
Yes, exactly. So Mike will appear on the show post-intro. We are re-recording the intro, and then we'll go into the main body of the show, which is still like the bulk of the show. So yeah, like we'll just call out that Mike interrupted me when I was giving his intro. So I think I think I went back to the interrupter-in-chief. And then he also had no games that he was really playing outside of Skyrim. And that was really his contribution for the intro, so you're not missing much. So in this week's show, we'll be discussing what's going on with Ubisoft and their sinking ship, Skullbones, a review of Assassin's Creed Valhalla's meaty, rich Irish expansion, Wrath of the Druids, my first impressions of Mass Effect Legendary Edition, and some hot takes, now that we know what I said on reviewers. Maybe we should do the intro after the show every time. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. And finally, amongst many things in the show, next game of some other year, 2011 nominee, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim.
It's really weird. It's like we can see the future.
I know. It's actually very optimal to do the intro at the end. As always, if you want to follow us on social media, find us at Bigwigborn. That is Big Wig, Week in Gaming, podcast.
You got there.
Yeah, we're pretty much on everything there. No corrections. We're just perfect this last week.
Was there any corrections from the show that's coming soon? I think I corrected you that the 14th of May is Friday instead of Thursday.
Yes. So
but I will repeat that correction when I get to my Wrath of the Druids segment.
Yes. Oh, and also live, shout out to Joe Jives, one of our great listeners, provided the intro for last week. He asked, did he get a mention on the show? Well, now you do. We didn't get a mention in the original show, but now you are getting the mention in the new intro for the show. So no corrections. Update. So Zwam. I didn't say this right the first time around, and I still didn't learn. Zwam Studio. Maker.
Zaum.
Is that how you say it? Zaum.
I don't know. It looks like Zaum.
Sounds so confident the way you said it. Zaum Studio. They are the creators, the studio behind Disco Elysium. Actually, they aren't the studio, are they? Are they the publishers?
I don't know, but live update
Here's a live
from Joe
correction.
Jives. Live update from Joe Jives. No, actually, I can't mention it, but we posted a certain person that bears resemblance to Mike, and
Yeah.
I'm just saying, no, it did not make it on the show, Joe Jives.
Oh, okay. That's what he was referring to.
No one understands this except Joe Jives. It's only for his...
All right, let's scrub this. Let's do the third intro. This is terrible. Okay, so Disco Elysium, I'm just quickly looking up. We don't usually do this. We're pretty good. Developed and published by ZA/UM. There you go. That's what I'm going to start saying now. So they, as we have covered and many other people have covered, they had their game, Disco Elysium, The Final Cut. Very highly regarded game, some game of the years of some outlets. refused classification in Australia. Now, when they first released Disco Elysium for PC on Steam, you classify it yourself in Australia. You don't need to go to the classification board. because they were publishing it on console, they needed to go to the classification board, and it was refused classification, which, as it says, they didn't get a classification, which meant they couldn't sell it on console. It was still sold on Steam at the time for Disco Elysium, the final cut. Now, as part of the classification board, they also have the review board, which is a independent but inside of the Australian classification board. And they asked for a review of the refused for classification status. And the review board, made up of 3 people, had looked at the materials, looked at the situation, and deemed the game made for adults and rated it R18+, which I think is a very sensible, logical outcome, which is very shocking in the Australian context. So this is very good. So it paves the way for a console release of this game. And I'm actually really keen to pick this game up on the Switch, Swinny. I don't know if you're going to pick it up on the Xbox.
Eventually, I mean, it's. I think that release is still in the pipeline, so I'm definitely looking forward to playing it.
Oh yeah, that's right, because it's Switch and PS4, right?
Yeah, I've still got a bunch of games of this kind of ilk that I still want to play through, like playing Torment, Planes of Memoria, whatever, Torment. The other similar kind of top-down classic CRPG or whatever. But no, this, by all accounts, is an absolutely fantastic game.
Oh, and no, so I'm just correcting us live. It's released on the PS4, PS5, Stadia, and it was already on PC, but PS4, PS5, and Stadia on the 30th of March this year. Switch, Xbox, and Series X and S is Q3 this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't understand that. Okay. So yeah, like I said, I'm keen to pick it up on the Switch. I'm very much like Leonardo DiCaprio. I only have time for 10s. This is a 10 out of 10 style game, what I've been told. And yeah, it's like it's definitely on my radar. It's on my what would you call it? It's not a backlog because it's not even out on the Switch, but it's like a forward backlog or something.
Forward backlog. Man, if we didn't have an episode title already in the bag, that would be...
The forward backlog. So there's that. In terms of community, so there's a community update. So we covered the Vice's article on Cruel World. So it's a very art-based game, came out of a game jam. Very cool game. The whole idea of the game was inspired a bit by blockchain that, you can hamper other players by jumping on resources, save points in the game, making it harder for other people to save or not making it harder, depending on what people want to do. You can go back to our video where we covered it or the original article. Very cool game, very interesting. And it was really awesome. We actually had one of the devs from the game reach out to us. And I think you'd frame it as criticize us for not playing the game. But they were kindly enough to give us 3 codes for the game. And
yes.
You and I, as very diligent people, proceeded to play it. And of course, Mike, the missing man in the middle, the interrupter. It's very quiet on the show at the moment.
Mike, you there? Can you hear us?
Sweetie, seriously, how different does the show feel without Mike? I always feel like on edge, like he's about to jump in.
It's like, oh my God, I can finish my sentences.
It's like, wait, someone's listening to what I'm saying and not just waiting to say something when I stop talking. Anyway, so we both played this. I thought it was really cool, really, really interesting. And of course, being the prick that I am, I proceeded to add my name to the register and make it permanent.
While I was for the better of the community and did not make myself a permanent owner of any of the terminals.
And then when you died, what happened?
I went back to the beginning of the game. Because I didn't realize you need to type save at the terminal. Well.
Whereas I can save and I can go back at any time I want and go back to the checkpoint that I was at. So yeah, the game's still alive. Yeah, I had a bit of back and forth with the dev. They're doing a whole retrospective themselves on the game, and they expected it to die. It's a lot more brutal now. Like I think people after the articles and things like that have been dicks like me and added their names to the registers and like made it harder to get through the game. But very, very cool game. I love art games. I love this kind of stuff. And I feel like, I was listening to an interview that Jonathan Blow did with Ted Price, who runs Insomniac Games. There's a very cool podcast that Ted Price runs. And, you have opinions on Jonathan Blow, right? The maker of Braid and The Witness, Swinny?
I have opinions, as in, I think he's an amazing creator.
Yeah, but he's very divisive, right? Like, he puts a lot of people off.
It does, but I mean, I also there's a lot of people. Majority gamers probably have no idea who he is and just go, "Oh, Brave
True.
was cool.
Fair
The Witness
point.
is
Fair
cool."
point.
You know, so.
I think I love people like this. Like, the Phil Fishers of the world, anyone like that. Anyone with like, just who's different, to be honest. Who, he's on, so Ted Price runs Insomniac Games. They make AAA, real AAA games, yeah? Spider-Man, things like that. Ratchet and Clank's coming up. And I would love you if you actually listen to this podcast, Swinny. He's almost like literally insulting him on the podcast. Like going, triple A games, they just copy things from indie games and, that's okay. That's really good, but it's just like not very inspiring. And there's a whole bunch of points where Ted Price, who seems like the nicest guy, he's very open, very nice. He's like, oh, I got to give a counterpoint to this. And he's like, it's like the most awkward episode he's ever had on the show. But yeah, like just going back to Jonathan Blow, like, I do think he makes a good point that games as a medium can be so much more expressive than they actually are. And we still find ourselves trying to go into the same models, whereas because they're so interactive and networked, like there's so many things you could do with it. And it just feels like it's a bit of a shame that we don't try to do more.
Definitely. And another live update. That's it. Joe Jives is no longer the #1 fan of our show because he hasn't even subscribed to us on YouTube.
That's awesome.
That's it. Barred. He's barred.
He's barred.
No more mentions.
And then in terms of what we've been playing, so I have finished Dark Souls.
Woohoo!
Finished Dark Souls. So I played the game kind of half blind, half not blind, some walkthrough, some not, depending on if I was getting stuck or like, the reality is I don't have that much time to play games and, I'm not that great at games. So I sort of felt like, oh, okay, this is going to take me 100 hours to get through, given how dumb I am. So I better get some pointers of what I should do and what I shouldn't do. And there's a lot of stuff in the game that's very, like, they just don't tell you. And there's parts of the game I played blind. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Or just structures and stuff like that. Yeah, we'll cover it in 2 weeks' time when we cover our final game of some other year for 2011. It's one of the nominees, obviously, Dark Souls. So we'll go more in depth in that retrospective there. But the game's amazing. Rolled credits, did the standard ending, linking the bonfires, and then like the thing that I couldn't believe because I was like just letting the credits run because I was just like, oh my god, I've climbed this mountain. That the game just starts again straight away, like seamlessly, and it, like literally, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna explore the next bit. I'll just get up to the bonfire and I'll save there, and then I'll like end it and put the game away. I'm like, I wonder how I'll go against the Asylum Demon. So go in there, like straight away, you know what I mean? Like didn't run away from the Asylum Demon, smashed him. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just get through a little bit further and then I'll go all the way up to ringing the first bell. So
yeah, I've said it before, it's all about confidence in this game. Once obviously learning the areas and the enemy placements and everything is a huge part, but when you feel confident and you're not just like tiptoeing around that game, you can breeze through it. And that's what, that game at that point, the game is a tough game, but once you kind of got that confidence, it's like, it just feels natural to me, that game.
Yeah, and like, I've got to be mindful. I don't want to repeat myself when we do the retrospective in 2 weeks' time, but the game is a hard game. I think there's a lot of people who will just not be able to beat the game. So you can't say it's not hard. I'll give that.
Yeah, I agree.
But I would say it's not like NES hard. Like NES hard, and when I'm saying NES hard, the Ninja Gaiden, stuff like that,
Silver Surfer.
Yes, well, but that's almost like next level NES hard. That's but like Dungeons and Dragons, it's not Dungeons and Dragons. Ghouls and Ghosts, sorry.
Yeah.
Those kind of games where they are beatable, but you have to be so dedicated with your timing and exact, it'd be almost like Dark Souls with only a few bonfires level difficulty, I think. Then it would be pretty much the equivalent. I think Dark Souls is beatable with a lot of dedication and, sure, there'll still be people who can't beat it, but it's not anywhere near NES hard. But one thing I will say is, how I wasn't really playing games at this period of time when this game came out? This game to me is the exact kind of game I wanted to play. Right?
I said that.
I know you did.
I
know you did. All right. I'm acknowledging it. All right. 10 years later, you're right. Swinny was right. I was always whinging, and I think it's fair, to be honest, that games at that time were just too easy. You could never die. There was no consequences. You just get through them. And this game is all about trade-offs. Like if you do something, well, there's going to be a downside to it. You light a bonfire and you rest there. Okay, all the enemies are back. Like there are consequences to your actions.
I've got one response to that, and it's one of our favourite sayings off the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's called sift.
Yeah, okay.
Save it for the podcast, specifically in 2 weeks when we're doing the full breakdown.
I was just saying then that I've got to be careful of how much I say. So
I just wanted to say sift on the actual show.
So then I rung the first bell and I'm like, okay, I've got to stop playing this game because I don't have much time. And, when I say I don't have much time, I got kids and full-time jobs, so I need to have a healthy gaming pastime. But I put the disc away and put in Uncharted, which is one of my Dirty Dozen games, part of my gaming resolutions. Very cool game. I'm only up to like the second chapter or whatever in Drake's Fortune, Uncharted 1. But I can understand where people are coming from in that game. That's almost the opposite, but at the same level of quality as Dark Souls. Like, it doesn't feel hard at all. You just kind of get through it, and it's a lot of fun, and it doesn't feel like too many consequences. Great story. Doesn't try to be cryptic or anything like that, but it's just like an action movie, after you've watched a really, I don't know, very deep art movie or something like that. As always, playing Monster Hunter Rise, but needing to put it down to play like Okami and other games. Final Fantasy VII I need to play on the Switch. As part of the Dirty Dozen. It kind of feels weird because I honestly think I'd just be playing Monster Hunter Rise this whole time if I felt like I didn't have obligations to play games. And then the last thing for me is I'm reading Press Reset. 3 or 4 chapters in so far, so about halfway through the book. Very great book, so well written. Absolutely a page turner. Like I am like reading it and going, I want to see what I'm like up to this part in the book, and I won't spoil it, and we will cover it in next week's show, but I'm like, I want to see what game they're talking about. Like Jason Schreier, who wrote the book, he's got a great writing style. He draws you in, and you're like, I want to know like what happens with the games that, are coming off the back of big studios falling or small studios falling over, which is the kind of the whole theme of the book. Like what's next after a studio fails. Great book. I haven't finished it, but my big question will be: is it as good as Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, which was his first book that he wrote? Probably not so far from what I've read, but I'll save it for the full review next week. Swinny, what have you been playing?
Yeah, so I picked up Cyberpunk finally.
And you broke the promise. You said you were gonna wait until the next gen release.
I wasn't sure, so there was a few things. First of all, it's like, okay, after the patch, done decent patches, and after it sounded like the first big major patch they did kind of put it in a place where I'm happy to play it. So I picked it up for Xbox, and looks and runs great on my Series X, so I'm happy with that. But I've literally only just done like the origin story, the corporate integot style story where you start out as a bigwig. And I'm pumped to jump into it properly this week because I've been laser focused on 2 other games. So the first of those is Assassin's Creed Valhalla Wrath of the Druids DLC, which I am reviewing later in the show.
So you're reviewing it, so that must mean you've played a few hours of it, like some other people.
I've played quite a few hours of that game, which I'll mention later.
Yeah.
And the other game is the one I talked about a little bit a couple of weeks ago, Haven, the sci-fi romance RPG from the French studio The Game Bakers. They also published it. I finished that game. Took me about 20-25 hours. Really, really enjoyed it. Tells a really, really nice personal story about 2 characters, lovers U and K, as they escape a world where they get paired up involuntarily by something called the Matchmaker, kind of like a Black Mirror episode. And it's a really, really, honestly realistic depiction of a relationship, like the ups and the downs, but lots of ups. Like these people are truly in love, and they have sex all the bloody time. It's like, I don't know, the Elder Scrolls 7 horn bag or something like that. But sometimes it feels like you're a bit like when you're listening to like all their dialogue when they're lying there in bed and stuff like that. Like some of it's very like you feel like you shouldn't be listening in on this stuff.
Mm.
But it's a lot of it's play for laughs. It's really, really good. The combat, when I first talked about it at the show, I hadn't actually got to any combat yet, so I was only like 30 minutes in or something. But the combat's, you enter an encounter and it's kind of like a manually charged ATB system. So the left side of the controller is one character, the right side is the other. And let's say to do one attack, you hold the left stick left and the other stick right, and then you charge them up and release the moves. And if you do the same style of move with both characters at the same time, they'll do duo attacks and charge them up. It's pretty fun, drags on a little bit, but you can auto battle weaker enemies, which is pretty cool. But probably my favorite thing about the game is the amazing soundtrack by the French electronic artist Danger. So that's, definitely check that soundtrack out. Even if you don't want to play the game, I really recommend it on YouTube or Spotify. So the game is Haven.
I have to say, because you've sent a few things in our offline chat, and I was like, wow, this is so explicit, this game. I couldn't believe what they were saying in the game. I'm like, this is unbelievable.
It's actually pretty funny. You find a you go into these little it's like a run. It's like this planet got settled and then has been abandoned, and you find out why. But you go into these huts, these futuristic huts, and you find items, you bring them back, and then they've got cutscenes about these items, and it's really, really funny. But they find what seems to be like a German animated, like a cartoon Kama Sutra, and so there's funny cutscenes where they're like looking at, like they're browsing Kama Sutra, like, oh, that one doesn't look right, stuff like that. It's actually pretty funny. But
crazy.
yeah, the game, like as I said, like, man, like I swear they probably had sex like 30 times in the different cutscenes in that game. It's pretty wild.
It's crazy. And like what you showed me, I was like, I felt uncomfortable. I'm like, Jesus, this is like someone's bedroom. Like, you got to understand, like, if you're watching a movie and it's like sex in a movie and then like intimate scenes and then scenes after intimacy, it's so fake compared to like real life.
Yeah.
And in this game, it was so much more like real life, like practical matters. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, that's why I say the whole thing, you feel like it's stuff you shouldn't be hearing because they're this couple, and it's like as if you were like standing in the corner of a room while a couple was talking after having sex. You know,
just like
really
what Mike
awkward.
loves. Oh, nice.
Yeah. No, pretty much that's it. Because I spent a lot of time playing through that Assassin's Creed DLC.
I'm going to be interested to see where you're up to in that. All right, well, let's get into our first major story, our headliner, which is around Ubisoft and the Skull and Bones game, and then also just how Ubisoft's going. So I was just wondering, Swinny, as the mega Ubisoft fan among us, did you want to cover this?
I'm happy to cover it, but I wouldn't call myself a mega Ubisoft fan. I'm a mega
apart from
Assassin's
playing
Creed
every
fan.
single Assassin's Creed game, including mobile games.
But that's the like.
And you've played other Ubisoft games. Come on.
I don't. Not into many of their other franchises.
All right,
so
go.
You're misrepresenting me.
I never misrepresent you.
Yeah. So basically, with Skull and Bones, so as part of their latest earnings call, Ubisoft confirmed that the game, which is like a shared world pirate game that got announced at E3 2017, so nearly 4 years ago, is now expected to release in the 2022 to 2023 financial year. And based on the history of this game, I honestly wouldn't expect it till 2023. So the last actual gameplay was seen of this game is back in June 2018, and it was a pretty big chunk. They gave us like 25-minute look at it, and it's definitely, as we'd expect when they first announced it 4 years ago, definitely built on the ship combat Assassin's Creed series, but then expanded way, way more to be essentially like a live service game with a big focus on co-op. So one thing that I've always been interested in, I'm not certainly the only person to think about this, is wave physics and how that would work in like a shared world game, because we've seen it, games like Crackdown 3, their multiplayer was like cloud-based, so that meant that like the debris and destruction was, calculated on by the cloud, so that means that everyone could see the same stuff. But I wonder, I don't think this is the reason why this game's been delayed so long, but how do you think they're going to handle the actual like wave part of it for different people? Do you reckon it'll be cloud-based?
Interesting thought.
Because I mean, that's pretty significant because it's like it completely changes how your ship is controlled.
But is that what they're saying, that the waves are kind of universal?
Well, I don't know. That's what I was wondering. If anyone, if you guys hadn't heard that, how you think you'd actually tackle that? Because yeah, it'd be tricky.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting because they'd have to be in sync, wouldn't they? Because the height and the physical location of the ship would be different based on the waves, you'd think.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's really fascinating. Didn't even think of that.
Anyway, this game is, it's at this point I'm surprised that it's still a thing, but it seems like they've obviously sunk a lot of money into this already. So for them to just cancel it outright is probably not going to make sense. But I don't know. Like it's this game, like Ubisoft generally, unless there's stuff we don't hear about, they're pretty solid with actually bringing their games out.
They're like one of the most reliable studios. Like if you're an investor and you wanted to invest, they're probably one of the studios that do make a lot of sense because they're pretty stable, right? Like there's not a lot of ups and downs. They always seem to release at least a couple of AAA games per year, if not 3. And they seem to get decent reviews. It's not like Last of Us territory stuff, but they're pretty reliable. I mean, this is the first game from the studio, right? Like the actual internal studio.
So I think it's from the Singapore studio. I'm not sure. It wouldn't surprise me if that studio has, because a lot of what happens in Assassin's Creed games, they'll sometimes get a whole bunch of studios to do smaller pieces of the games. So it wouldn't surprise me if they've done support work on other titles, but this may be the first one they're heading up.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, like they definitely would have done support work. Yeah, it's hard to see because I'm just looking at their Wikipedia. It doesn't list them as a co-developer, but it does seem for a long time. Like if you look at it, it's like Odyssey, Origin, Syndicate, Rogue, Unity. They weren't the maker of those games. So yeah, and that's a long period of time. So it's pretty tough jumping from that to, your own full game, as you've seen through things like, Days Gone and other games where they've had free reign on a new IP.
Yeah, and this leads into the next, I guess, headline from Ubisoft. Honestly, at this point, I'm surprised that this game isn't going to be free to play, because I always thought that they could go with that model if they're going for live service. But as part of what they kind of announced this week, so what they're actually doing, Ubisoft are pivoting to a blend of AAA and free to play releases for their franchises going forward. So the news comes after last week's announcement of The Division Heartland. So that's a new free-to-play release in the Division series, which is quietly actually quite popular, The Division. I know it is a AAA release, but you don't hear people talking about it all the time. But it generally sells really well, has decent player bases, especially number 2, from the sounds of it. And they cited Call of Duty as an example of the kind of model they're going with. So they have their main Call of Duty releases, which are, full priced retail games, complemented by a free to play, addition to the series, which is Warzone.
Yep.
So I think if you want to play in the free to play space even more, I think that's a way to do it when you're one of these big AAA publishers, is to kind of, use the strength of your franchises to create these, I wouldn't say smaller, but these side experiences that are free to play.
Yeah, and apart from Nintendo, you almost need to park Nintendo in these kind of conversations. But this, Call of Duty are definitely doing it, but, everyone's moving in this direction. Like you see it with Halo Infinite, right? Like they're talking about, even on PC, you'll be able to just install the multiplayer component and play it. Like it's pretty bonkers stuff. Like, and it makes sense, right? Because there's a lot of kids out there, there's a lot of people, and I hear more and more just people who have traditionally bought a lot of games are just going, oh, I just install it, it's free, might as well try it. And then they just get hooked in the ecosystem, right? And if their friends are there, and then they get battle passes and all this kind of stuff, and all this stuff really makes a lot of sense. I think, and just to touch on what you said, Swinny, and I don't think it's wrong, but it's one of those, how is Ubisoft going to go about this? And I see a lot of people having varying views in the industry, and even some people getting into a few fights about it. But, is this their AAA offerings are pretty much going to stay as they are right now, and they're increasing and amplifying the free-to-play elements of it's, you know, an additive kind of perspective, or is this going to take away from their AAA output over time?
So I'm just trying to understand what you said. I said wrong there out of that, because we hadn't got to the point yet that Ubisoft, after this news came out, Ubisoft, and obviously it's PR, and a lot of PR is half bullshit, but
Yeah.
that they basically clarified doesn't mean they're reducing their AAA output.
Yeah.
So their statement was, we are excited to be investing more in free-to-play experiences. However, we want to clarify that this does not mean reducing our AAA offering. Our aim is to continue to deliver premium experiences to players such as Far Cry 6, Rainbow Six Quarantine, Rise Republic, and Skull and Bones, to name a few, while expanding our free-to-play portfolio. That's why I mentioned Skull and Bones before, because while it's not an established franchise, it's had enough interest over the years that, to me, it's strange that they wouldn't actually make that a free-to-play.
It's such
they've
a
clarified here that, you know, that is a premium experience.
Yeah, they did bucket into the premium experience bit, but it feels like such a perfect title for free to play almost. I'd hate to see it as that, but when you think about all the cosmetics that you can apply to your ship, the things you can, the flags you can put up, the sails, all that kind of stuff, the different types of sails, the different bells and whistles you can put on your ship, the ramming devices and all sorts of stuff. I don't know what they're called. You could see how they could make it a free to play title, but at the same time, I can see how it'll become a AAA title, and then they would put all those elements, and you'd have to have some sort of in-game currency to purchase all that stuff. So, either way,
they've never done that before.
Yeah, exactly. They've never done that before.
Franchises.
So either way would work, but yeah.
You know, one thing though, I don't think this game necessarily appeals to kids as much as like the Fortnites of the world. And I think FIFA has demonstrated that you can effectively make a free-to-play game and then charge, you know, $60 probably $70 next year for it, and then have every single other element of a free-to-play game in it and make even more money. And I've you know, Ubisoft, I think they're more than happy to do that. And I think that's probably what their calculus is, that they view it as, no, they can still make money off this. And you know what, as well? I think Ubisoft has so many runs on the board that charging $60 for this game, or maybe they'll charge $40, a lot of people will just buy it because it's Ubisoft, and they'll probably break even because of that. But if it's a flop, at least they've got some of that money back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if they go free to play and people try it and they go, this game sucks, it's like, oh, okay. Well, they've just dusted all their money on this new studio. Well, not new studio, but, you know, throwing a new IP to the studio. So,
and look, they could, if the idea of this game being live service, they could always 2 years down the line transition it to free to play anyway.
But just quickly, Swinny, like, do you think that this is going to hurt their AAA output? I mean, they're saying it won't, but that doesn't mean jack.
I don't think it will.
Okay, interesting. I think it will.
Yeah.
I think it will. I think they haven't done much in this kind of space as much as they could, and other major publishers are doing. And I think inevitably that just will soak up resources because it makes more money.
Yeah, but they expand like anything.
Oh, yeah.
Just look at the amount of studios they've got. So all they need to do is just expand more to be able to cover that.
Yeah, I know, but like that's just not how money works, right? If money seeks what's the most profitable. So, you know, even with that, they'll expand to make more free to play rather than AAA, in my view. But we'll see how it plays out. All right, let's jump into the next topic. So Sony's first party game pipeline. So it was an interview, and, you know, Sony's had a pretty rough, you know, month or so. You know, a lot of announcements that didn't land well with gamers, and then obviously a lot of positive announcements from Xbox. And, you know, it did seem like they needed to get on the front foot, especially with IPs, because, you know, games have always where Sony's actually dominated. So you actually had the head of PlayStation Studios, Herman Holst, who has been elevated from the regular studios to head up PlayStation Studios. And, you know, in this article in Wired, it's quite interesting. He actually called out there's 25 first-party titles.
That's
and
a lot.
First-party for Sony is a bit weird because I think some people would actually classify some of these games as second-party. But, you know, do you know what I mean, Swinny? Because, like, there's some of the games, like, that Nintendo definitely calls second-party. It's not a Nintendo game, but they publish it. But anyway, I'll park that. But 25 first-party games, and then half of them being new IPs as well. So I think, Swinny, you wanted to do some speculation on what the games could be.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things here. So first of all, we've got our known titles and a couple of rumored ones. So it's about thinking about what first-party titles of known IPs do we think they have in development, or let's say next 3 years that they could be planning on getting out there, and maybe some gaps in the kind of, I guess, their offerings that they may be working on, which is the new IP side of things. So I guess let's clarify what we know is out there, and if I've missed one, feel free to let me know. But from a first-party standpoint, from what I could find, we've got Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which is about to come out. But that would probably be counted as part of those 25. We've got Horizon Forbidden West, we've got Gran Turismo 7, and we've got the God of War sequel, which is generally at this moment subtitled like Ragnarok. And the rumored titles, and there's maybe more here that we've heard from reports that are in development, but we have no idea how far away. One is The Last of Us remake. Another is a new IP from Sony Bend, the Days Gone studio. Was there any others that you guys remember that may be rumored?
No, actually. And it's
No
kind of a
rumours, no.
funny one.
But I want to start some rumors.
It's a funny one because, I think this is why they've come forward and put some stuff out there because, there isn't a lot necessarily on the horizon that you know about. I actually went through all their studios and said, okay, this is what I think they're making.
Huh? Okay.
Cool.
So, do you want me to reel through it or what do you want to do?
No, you go.
Run through it.
All right.
You've done the most research.
I'll do it quick. But this, like when I do the maths, this is more than half. So I think it works out to be like 16 or 17 or something like that. So we know it's wrong because they said half of them are new IP, right? Okay, so London studio, so they do SingStar. I think they could do a PSVR 2 SingStar game. There was some patents that Sony had where it had interaction with people on the couch with those who are in the virtual world in VR. So I think that makes sense and would be funny with SingStar. That's a good party game. Asobi team, so that's formerly kind of like Japan Studio. Asobi was in Japan Studio, but they're kind of Japan Studio now. I think they'll be doing like a fully fledged Astrobot VR game for PSVR 2. That's a perfect fit. Astrobot's got a lot more like knowledge ability with people on PlayStation now. And I could imagine they'll do like a massive, like really, really deep, long game in that space. Insomniac, we kind of already know they're working on Spider-Man 2. That's pretty clear. They've demonstrated that they're able to, work on multiple IPs at the same time. So I think they might reboot Resistance and do like a follow-up in Resistance. I think Insomniac is probably almost the, most likely team to actually do a new IP. So I'd probably put a question on that one. Guerrilla, we already know Horizon Forbidden West. Polyphony, that's Gran Turismo 7. Naughty Dog, I mean, there's lots of rumors around a new Uncharted game, a new Last of Us game, Media Molecule. So they've done Dreams. Dreams was pretty big flop, but it's got a quite interesting architecture. So I do wonder if they'll try to reboot Dreams on PC and PS5 and then include PS4. I think you need to get it on PC, to be honest.
Surely the idea is do they support that Dreams with new updates or anything? Do we know if they actually...
They are, yeah. They're still supporting it. Yeah.
But that's what I'm wondering, are they continuing to support that rather than work on a brand new IP?
Oh, I just wonder if it's a bit like, I guess, sorry, I didn't frame it right because I'm trying to rush through it, but I wonder if it's like a No Man's Sky, where it's still No Man's Sky, but is it really? It's kind of No Man's Sky 2, let's be real.
Quite a lot.
But it's still the same title. So my argument would be, it's still Dreams, but they're really going to do something different with it. So they'll use the bones of it, and then I think, if they're smart, launch it on PC. I don't think there's any downside to do that. And maybe if you do something smart with like launch it on PC, but you can publish games in a little pocket of the store on PS5 only. So get a carrot back into the PS5 and PS infrastructure and ecosystem. PlayStation Malaysia, I actually went through some of the stuff they did. And, they're one of those studios a bit like Ubisoft Singapore, where they're probably ready to do a new game. I wonder if they'll do Twisted Metal. I feel like Twisted Metal, given that there's a movie that's in production, makes sense that a game would be in production. Sumo Digital, maybe going back to their roots, Little Big Planet 4. That's a huge franchise that kind of needs to be revitalized a bit. Housemarque, wouldn't be shocked if they did something like Returnal 2. Seems like it doesn't make any sense given what the game is, but Sony does love sequels. Sucker Punch, I can't see how they're not going to do like Ghost of Tsushima 2. Like that game was so massive and hit so hard. they're another studio that could actually do multiple IPs potentially. So, they're the ones who, ran through Infamous. So, is that Infamous 3 maybe potentially? Santa Monica, we
Yeah, I was
already
thinking that
know.
too, yeah.
God of War 2. Santa Monica, I mean, it's the studio that should be able to make multiple IPs, but they don't seem to be doing that recently. So I've just left it as God of War 2. I do wonder, now this is like going into the, crazy territory. Like, I feel like Bloodborne 2 is kind of inevitable.
Hmm.
I don't know how that gets made.
I had that on my list as well.
Don't think Miyazaki is going to be involved in it. But I think they'll do Bloodborne 2, and then at the same time, maybe it'll be if you get Bloodborne 2, you can get a 60 FPS version of Bloodborne with it. Like, Sony is a bit of a dick with those kind of things, so I could totally see that happening, and that's something that people desperately want. And then, yeah, like the other studio, San Diego studio, they've been doing the show. Supposedly, they're doing another IP, so that could be a new IP. Ben Studio, we already kind of know they're doing a new IP, but it does make you wonder about Siphon Filter, when that's going to come back. Quantic Dream, they always do weird games.
I was about to ask, what's David Cage up to?
But at this point, like, we're outside of the first party space. When
But they classify
Quantic
these as
Dream.
first party games, though, Swinny. That's why I'm saying it's weird.
Hmm.
They do. They actually call these
Second
games.
third parties.
Well, I've always
1.5
known them as
parties.
traditionally second party games, but I was going through their list and some of what they're saying as PlayStation Studio games, and to me, they're second party games, but they call them PlayStation Studio games. So I don't know how you want to classify that, Swinny.
Look, I mean, we have to kind of, if we're
Like, is Concrete Genie a first party game or a second party game?
So if we're talking about the words of the head of PlayStation Studios, then we need to play in whatever words they use.
Yes. So, like, the best example is Pixelopus, which is Concrete Genie. That is not owned by PlayStation Studios, right? But they call Concrete Genie a PlayStation Studios game, like effectively a first party game. So it's kind of weird to me. It's like a contract, and it's an exclusive game to PlayStation. But yeah, normally that'd be a second party game, but
The Quantic Dream to me is different because they release stuff on PC as well, outside of the Sony space.
Sure. But I mean, like, a lot of these games are going to PC now as well, right? Like Horizon and stuff like that. So,
But they're published by Sony,
Yeah.
like, whereas Quantic Dream, like, those games aren't published by Sony on Steam. And
sure. Yeah, it's interesting because then, a counterpoint to what I'm saying myself, with oh shoot, I forgot the name of it, the Hideo Kojima game,
Death
Death Stranding. That definitely wasn't called a first party game, but it was funded by Sony and published by Sony as well, like on PlayStation, not on PC. So I don't know. They seem really weird with the titles. It's just Concrete Genie. They definitely call that a first party game, and it's not, according to the definition. So yeah, that's my sort of run through of like looking through.
I think you've probably covered everything.
Pretty good
you could
run through,
possibly
yeah.
think of. I mean, you
think
covered
that's
the stuff I had mentioned as the easy wins, like your Ghost of Tsushima sequel, your Astro VR sequel, and
Infamous.
stuff like that. Yeah, I wonder. Do you think that now Sony has obviously a lot of great support from third parties in a lot of this space, but when I look at their offerings, there's definitely to me gaps. Like, they generally don't have a big RPG franchise, right?
Well, they have Final Fantasy, right?
No, I was about to say, like, they're very empowered by a lot of third party.
Oh, you mean first party? Sorry, man.
Yes, first party. So they're empowered by a lot of third parties
Yeah.
in that space. But to me, it is a big gap, and I wonder at some point if they've had a very good relationship or very good support by Level 5 in the past, like Ni no Kuni and a lot of their games as well. I wonder at some point if they will, potentially, like, do like a the situation like you did with Housemarque and stuff like that, but maybe a level 5 RPG in that space. Because to me, they're kind of lacking from a first party perspective on that. But also the fact, and this could be a red herring, but the fact that they've now purchased Evo, and obviously they've got great fighting game support from third parties. But I wonder. I don't know if they'll make a push like they did for Street Fighter 5, for Street Fighter 6 again, but do you think that at some point it makes sense to have another first-party fighting game in their arsenal? So
my perspective on Sony, it's very different to Microsoft. Sony, number one, doesn't have a massive amount of capital as a company, right? Like, they used to have lots of different components to their business firing, but PlayStation now is the bulk of their profitability. And I just look at it and I go, you know, they've already got really great relationships. There are like, you have to acknowledge that there are just cultural things about Japan business. Like the fact that, you know, they always have better deals with Square and Capcom and all these Japanese publishers and studios that Microsoft has never been able to break through fully. And there is a cultural dimension to that. And it just business in Japan is different than in the West, where it's like the only thing that matters is the dollar. It's not really like that in Japan completely. I think they just look at it and go, we don't need to have, you know, first party support in RPGs, fighting games, because we get the support from these studios and we pay for it as well. I mean, don't forget, like, we know that they paid for exclusivity with, you know, Final Fantasy, with, you know, Resident Evil 7 VR, you know, so it can't go on any other platform, you know, lots of those kind of games. And I think they'll just keep doing those practices, to be honest. I mean, they were already in deep chats. I mean, this is more of a rumor, but, you know, in deep chats with Bethesda around Starfield, and, you know, talking about large sums of money to make it an exclusive, you know, RPG on PlayStation. So I think they're very conscious of the gaps that they have, but I think the way they fill those gaps isn't, you know, hey, we need to make the game ourselves or buy a studio or anything like that. We just need to be able to pay for that exclusivity.
But the reason why I bring that up is if they're looking at new IP, I mean, are they just going to do another third-person action game?
Yeah,
as a new IP, you know?
I don't think you would see another zombie game from them, right? So yeah, I think.
But I mean, right. Like, while they obviously play all very differently and they're very different tones, but essentially, you know, your Last of Us, your God of War, your Days Gone, Ghost of Tsushima, I mean, they're all kind of third-person action games in just different types, you know, even when you're bundling something like a Spider-Man. Like, it just seems like that's what, when they're first party, when we talk about first party, that's their safe zone.
Yeah.
They don't really go outside of that, with the exception of like Gran Turismo and stuff, but that's obviously well established. So,
if anything, I actually look them in a different way. I wonder if they'll push more into family-friendly games. And games like, not exactly like, but, you know, you look at games like Animal Crossing and Mario Kart, like Nintendo right now just has a free like run at that space of games. And, you know, they're dominating Japan as well. And, you know, the real kind of thrust of PlayStation now sits in the US, amazingly, but there's still a lot of important folk in Japan, and they'll be reeling from the fact that they're getting dominated by the Switch in Japan. So I do wonder, because like the old PlayStation was always appealing across the whole gamut of ages. I feel like with the PlayStation 4, it got really mature, and I wonder if they'll start to push back into the kids' territory and things like that. But yeah, but we'll see, Swinny. It'll be interesting. All right, moving on. DualSense. So just quickly, there's been 2 new color reveals for DualSense controllers, Midnight Black and Cosmic Red. I just wanted to get your take on what you thought these look like. Mike, are you getting one as the other fellow PlayStation 5 owner?
The answer is no. They look cool. They look cool, but no, I will not be getting one. It's a cosmetic thing, which is also kind of funny that the Cosmic Red is $10 more expensive than the Midnight Black. I don't know if the manufacturing process is that much more expensive to get a different color on it, or clearly it's just a marketing ploy because it's cool. So no thanks. I'll stick to my shitty white.
Well, so there's a couple of things from me. Like, I find it a bit bizarre that they don't have because we all know, and they've said themselves, that you can remove the side panels for the PlayStation 5. And they've gone after people that have tried to provide replaceable ones. So it does seem like they're, you know, wanting to sell them eventually. So I didn't expect them to go, here's a controller, and not have the compatible side panels. You think you'd sell it as like, you can get the controller, it's red, or you can get the controller, the Cosmic Red controller, and also the side panels, and combination, it's slightly cheaper than if you bought them each on its own cheaper.
Yeah, I know. And you can have a nice black PlayStation, or the Cosmic Red does look cool with the fade and stuff. So yeah, we'll see.
When I was chatting
Maybe they'll release it.
When I was chatting to my contacts at EB, they were just like salivating over this. Like the side panels and stuff. They're going to make so much money on the side panels.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be great. Because it's just like pieces of plastic that are like $3.
Super overpriced.
They're going to make like $50 each one.
Really?
Yeah. Now, the real reason why I wanted to highlight this, because I was like, oh, they look really cool. I really like the Cosmic Red one, but I just not a big color guy for controllers. And Yeah, like I looked at the black one, and if you actually look at it closely, I think it looks really crappy because it's like the shell part. If you see the white part of the traditional DualSense, it's actually a different tone to the part at the bottom. I don't know if you know if you guys can see what I'm saying. So
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Yeah.
that would bother the hell out of me because it's not the same black.
Because it's a different. Well, I
It's
think
almost like
the
not even a
plastic's
black.
slightly different as well, isn't it? The type of plastic they use.
Yeah, but they've done that to still go with the dual color scheme. So,
I know,
like,
but
rather than being all black, it's kind of two-toned.
yeah, but it's kind of like two-tone of different black. I don't know. I'm so OCD with that kind of shit. So once I saw that, I was like, "Wow, I can never ever have that. I can never have a
Wow.
black console."
All I could say is I've never even bothered. Well, now that I started playing the PlayStation, I don't even care or notice what color the controller is, to be honest.
Like the whole setup is
I don't
like,
get it.
It's egregious. Like it's an eyesore. Like even my parents, when they saw it, they're like, "What the hell is that on your desk?" Like they didn't even know what it was. They thought it might have been a PC or something because it was right next to my other PC. But yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame.
I like them and I like the designs and everything. It's one of those things that they look pretty for a bit and then they get dirty and they get worn.
Like white.
And then you're like, why did I spend $110 on that? Well, just any of them. Like the Cosmic Red one, I think it looks really, really cool as you know, a piece of tech and stuff. But how long, unless you keep it in a box, how long is it going to stay nice and shiny and cool?
Yeah.
It's just going to be a used controller by the end of it. And I think the marketing behind this is amazing, that people will fork out extra cash just because of the color of a controller that they never really look at. Just what is it, to show off to their friends or something? It's such an interesting mentality. Marketing at its finest, I think.
Well, there's a lot of people that will collect them all, like all the variations and stuff.
Yeah, there's that too. But again, marketing, right? It's all down to marketing.
I know.
So
I know.
it's brilliant.
All right, let's move on. So for our final news story, just covering quickly the release of the RetroTink 5X Pro. So I'll try to run through this pretty quickly. I think if you want to go for a deeper dive, check out Modern Vintage Gamer, My Life in Gaming, and Retro RGB. So that's Bob from Retro RGB. They're all really great channels, really great resources for nerds like me who love retro consoles, retro gaming, and then how do you get the best advantage out of modern technology with that. So yeah, with the RetroTink, just quickly, Mike Chi, who's the person behind the company, he's a very cool guy. He's an electrical engineer who was like, oh, okay, I want to get back into retro gaming. Found it was really hard to do some of the basic stuff. And I actually bought one of his first products. So basically it was a hat. So a hat is like a component of technology that goes on top of another piece of electronics for the RetroPie. So you have like the Raspberry Pi, and you could actually plug it on top of the Raspberry Pi and provide output, composite output to TVs. So I did that for a while, and that was ages ago.
It's pretty cool.
Like I said, he's a really nice guy. I reached out to him, I had a chat to him and all that kind of stuff. He was really, really nice guy. And he's just gone from strength to strength. And he's very big on how do you make things as simple as possible, easy as possible, plug and play as possible, and just get on with it. And I think here, and I think for you, Swinny, you should definitely pay attention to this product. Like for me, this product, the whole genesis of the product, the idea of it is you take your old consoles, so NES, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, everything pre-HDMI, and then his device, this 5X Pro, you just plug it in, and then you've got an HDMI output, plug it into your TV, and it's going to work. And this is the best product, I would say, for anyone who's happy to spend the money for it. It's 100% the best product. Now, it's not perfect. There are some issues, I think, with PAL signals, which is important for us because we're in the PAL region. It can be a bit funny, but he's always been really good with updating firmware. I mean, the reality is he's in America. He probably doesn't even have some of these consoles that people have now tested it on. And he's very quick, and, he's actually got, easily firmware updatable hardware. So he can actually go through and fix this. But essentially what it does at a very quick pace, it's electronics. So there's almost no delay. And he's very transparent about the delay. Like some of these products, he's like, it's a 53 microsecond delay, right? And you think about it, like a frame in a 60 FPS game is like 1,667, microseconds. You know what I mean? And he's like 53 microsecond delay. The guy, like everyone else would say it's lag free, but he's like so transparent and honest,
That's
this
so
guy.
cool.
I really, really like the guy. And essentially
I like mics. Mics are the best.
what it does is, if you think about like a Super Nintendo, like simplistically, this is not exactly true, but simplistically, there's 240 horizontal lines, right? And this is why these things in the old days used to be called line doublers, because they would take each line and then double it, turn it into a 480 sort of P sort of signal, which most, even TVs could cope with the 480. TVs can't cope with the 240. They just aren't built for it. But this one, and this is why it's 5x, because it actually can multiply it 5 times and even 6 times. And why do you want to do that? It's because you take a Super Nintendo, you plug it into Mike Chi's RetroTink 5X Pro, and then you can actually plug it through HDMI to a 1440p monitor, and it will perfectly pretty much multiply the lines out. So the pixels are like super chunky, super perfect, nearest neighbor,
nice.
Just looks sick. So like for me, it's like if you're someone on this video, you're like looking at, I want to take an old console, a super, and Nintendo 64, plug it into my latest OLED TV that I've just bought, one of the top range ones that I'll have for 10 years. This is the device you want. Now it's $275 US, but Mike Chi's always like had things at a very affordable price. The price is because of the current component issue. Like he's already said that. He goes, I expected it to be way cheaper, but when he's buying the components, they're like 3 times, 4 times more than he normally pays. And he's actually said it will be cheaper with time, like in revisions and stuff like that. So it's one of those ones, if you don't need it now, probably hold off, because it will be cheaper once we get through this component crisis. But yeah, if you're keen to plug in old consoles to HDMI without modifying them, this is the perfect way to do it. Any question, boys?
Nope, sounds good.
Thank you very much for that.
Good job, Mike.
And then I should say one time, like we will cover Mister. I actually might buy Mister, and then we'll cover it through that way. So that's one way to do it. All right, let's go to my favorite segment of the week. The bargain bin for the week commencing Sunday, the 16th of May. So Epic Game Store, as always, has come through. Not always, but the Lion Song is free at the moment until the 21st of May. And they've gone back to their format of saying there's a mystery game coming up, which, generally when they do that kind of stuff, they have a pretty decent game in the pipeline. So keep your eyes on that. For the Switch, Anima Gate of Memories Arcane Edition is $22.50 until the...
I'll just clarify, sorry, that was until 20th of May. That is a dual pack of Animagated Memories and Animagated Memories, the Nameless Chronicles. So 2 games there.
Okay.
And they're $15 each separately.
Oh, okay. Cool. Until the 20th of May. Gods Remastered is $4.50 until the 20th of May. And Katamari Damacy Reroll is $7.50. Very, very fun game until the 23rd of May on PlayStation. Until the 27th of May, Castlevania Anniversary Collection. So that does not include Symphony of the Night, but it has a lot of the old school Castlevania games. Is $7.50. Thief is $2.50. It's a bit of a bargain. The Dwarfs,
95% off.
That's been so cheap on Steam and stuff.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm always debating about getting it, but I think it's more of a PC game.
I'll try it out.
I think it's a PC game. Because it's covered in Press Reset, but we'll cover that next week. The Dwarves is $11, and Ryzen 3 Titan Lords Enhanced Edition is $6.
Risen.
I was going to say, is it Risen or Ryzen? It's like, have you seen the movie
Risen.
Closer? Or Closer? Yeah. It's literally like you don't know which one it is. It's $6.25. So, Swinny, over to you for Xbox.
Yeah, so we've just one addition highlight. It's a little way off, but did get announced that Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance is launching into console and PC Game Pass on the 22nd of June. Also this week, a couple of updates around what Microsoft doing with these Series X and S platforms. So first of all, they're adding Dolby Vision HDR support. That's on the way for TVs that are compatible with that. And I didn't realize that until after I bought it that my new TV does support it. So that's pretty cool. Now, they're also adding some more accessibility options pretty soon. So text-to-speech and speech-to-text support for party chat is on the way. So that's actually really, really cool. It's nice to have that those features available, especially for people that, can't use, the gamepads very well as well. So.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, well, let's get into our features. So just to keep things fresh for the boys, I've actually rejigged the order, just conscious that Mike is potentially having to leave us very
Didn't even
unprofessionally.
notice it happened. What witchcraft is this?
So what we wanted to cover is, as a continual feature, our Game of Summer of the Year of 2011. This week we will be covering The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, the Majestic Epic. That's your commentary, isn't it? That's your opinion, Swinny?
Well, I have to come up with some kind of a
believe-
subtitle
yeah.
for every.
He wrote
I've
that.
made it 5 out of 6 so far. So.
So yeah, like these. I don't know, what do you even call it? It's not even a retrospective almost. Like we're just chatting about the game, leading up to our determination of what the greatest, the game of some other year is for 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as per normal, we should cover what all 6 nominees are. So we have, next to Skyrim, the other 5 nominees are Minecraft, Super Mario 3D Land, LA Noire, Deus Ex Human Revolution, and Dark Souls. And we've done nominee features for all of them so far, except Dark Souls, which will be in 2 weeks. So if you want to check out our extended thoughts on all those 4 previous nominees, check out the videos on YouTube or the episodes.
And we should say with this game, like this is for a lot of people the obvious game of the year, 229 game of the years in its time period,
Insane.
and has been released subsequently on
Every platform under the sun.
Well, now it hasn't, I guess, because PS5 it hasn't been released on, and Xbox Series X, but it will. I think they've already said it's going to be released on
So
PS5.
the Legendary Edition, they'll then release a revive. I don't even know what they'll call it. Epic Legendary Edition on the PS5. Remake.
No, they won't
Wait,
do a
what's a Legendary Edition?
Sorry, I'm talking about Mass Effect.
I know.
What was the latest Skyrim
Special
edition?
edition.
The special
Special
edition. Sorry, I've read it because I think I've got all of them. I've got it on the Switch. I
think there was a version that came out. It was a Stadia.
I thought.
I mean, that's kind of like, is that even technically a thing?
I think there was a Legendary Edition, though. Yes, there is. There was a Legendary
Really?
Edition.
By the way,
back in
when I was
2013, yes.
When I was asking you, Mike, I wasn't actually having a go at you. I didn't even think of Mass Effect. I was curious about what a Legendary
okay.
Edition
No, I
of
mixed
Skyrim
it up
was.
because of that. But no, I do remember there was one.
Integot's the one that's
There
like
was.
slam with a Mass Effect.
There absolutely was one way back. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Legendary Edition. That's the one I was thinking of because I have that on PC.
Actually,
And then I also have the special edition on PC.
Yeah, they have the VR edition as well. So that is a different version.
So many of them. It's insane. It's probably the most remade game. Is it the most remade game in history? It's got to be, surely.
No, definitely not.
What else would be?
Oh,
The number of different copies and SKUs of this game. I can't think of anything
I think Tetris,
else.
I mean,
man.
Tetris.
Ah, look at
maybe
that, at the same
Tetris.
time.
Yeah, right.
I love
Maybe
it.
Tetris. Yeah, Tetris. Fair enough. Tetris
Yeah.
might win. Yeah, you're
No,
right.
but it's a modern game. It's
I feel
a
like
game...
Tetris had different variations. You know what I mean? It wasn't like the Tetris that was done. This
Sure.
is like it was. This feels like it was basically the same edition, and then they sort of had an upgraded edition, and then there's just copies of both.
Yeah,
multiple copies of both. Whereas Tetris kind of had many different versions of Tetris across different platforms. But fair enough. I'll give you guys Tetris.
So this game hit hard in the year it got released, and still is played by millions of people every single month to this day. Heavily supported by mods, released on lots of different formats. Like Mike said, it actually was a big announcement when it was released on the Switch and announced on the Switch. It was a part of the Switch's launch that, hey, we're going to have Skyrim. You know, we're a real console. Now, the history is, Swinny, you played this at the time it was released and beat it?
So I actually bought this on launch day
Wow.
on
Same.
360,
Pretty sure I did as well.
but I kind of played it for about 2 hours and put it down and probably came back. And it's one of those games you're like, oh man, I should have waited because I think probably come back for like another 10 months to actually play it. So it's, and even though I bought it on launch, like I bought it on launch regardless of the fact that I wasn't even a huge fan of Oblivion and hadn't played enough Morrowind to fall in love with the series, but there was just so much buzz and so much hype around this game that I'm like, I think I just impulse purchased. I saw it and I'm like, I happened to be in JB the day it came out. I'm just going to buy this bloody game.
Bye.
I think like out of these games, and this is not a comprehensive list of 6 that we have there, but I think it was the most hyped game that year, right? Like, it was more hyped than Dark Souls.
Surely, it must
easily
be.
the most
Yeah.
hyped.
More hyped than the
Yeah,
Batman
it's-
game. That was pretty
I'd say
hyped.
so.
Yeah,
I'd say so.
that's probably the most. Yeah, absolutely is. It's one of the most hyped
Yeah.
games of all time.
And
I'd
look, it
say.
lived up to it, man. Like, I
Totally.
mean, not to shortcut our determination, but this game is an amazing game. There's so much to it. It's still even today. Now, we should say the context is you guys played it when it came out. This is before the remastered edition, everything like that. I've only played it this year, so for the first time, this is like really when I've played it. And I beat it a few weeks ago. Now, that's just the main quest. I haven't played enough of the side quests and everything. I played a few of them.
The side quests are the better quests, by the way.
They're not even side quests.
What would you call them? Yeah,
well, it's just like you've got a main quest and you've got the guild quest.
Yeah,
like,
guild
I
quests.
wouldn't call them side
Yeah.
quests.
Yeah, fair enough. But you know what I'm saying, Swinny, right? And yeah, like, it's an amazing game. Like, look, for me, one thing about this game is, given that I'm playing this later, there's some elements to the game I get like so frustrated about, and it feels like I'm running through mud or something like that. Like, for me, I'm a huge fan of Breath of the Wild, so I played Breath of the Wild first, then played this game. And Breath of the Wild's just like you go anywhere. It's the same kind of concept. It really does feel like you go anywhere you want. But to me, this game, like, I get up to like a rock, and I can't get over the rock. Like, there's no way for me to get over the rock.
But that's to do with their engine in general. Fallout had the same problem. Oblivion had the same problem.
Yeah, but I don't care about their engine.
It's the game engine.
I don't
thing.
care about their engine. It's just like,
what do you need to do, by the way? You should have asked me. Is if you turn around and jump backwards.
No, I did that.
You
I
can't
did that
get over the
naturally.
rock.
I did that naturally. No, dude, I did that naturally. I was trying to get up a mountain, and then I found I was getting up the mountain better if I was going backwards up the mountain.
Yes.
So that's what I learned to do naturally, and then I found out there's like a technique for it.
What you view as a negative, I view as,
Of course you do.
like, you didn't even let me finish my sentence before you said that. I said I view as just one of those charming quirks of this game, and Oblivion had it as well, where it's almost like you can shortcut the game based on how well you navigate the terrain. Like, there's parts in Oblivion I remember where I was like skipping whole areas because I was like managing to climb these ridiculous mountains that are like almost vertical facing, but by using certain angles and stuff. And look, this game in general is not flawless. But there's those rough edges almost, as I said, like, it adds a charm to it for me. Now, it's not charming when you fall through the terrain or you get like stuck and you can't get out kind of situations. But in general, I kind of like the fact that this game isn't like, it doesn't restrict you in that way. It's like you can actually make your own way past that stuff.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
And that goes the same with not just obviously the physics and the terrain and everything else, but the way you approach situations. It's like it's a full-on proper RPG. Not to the extent that you can diffuse some situations like you can, I think, in Fallout. Fallout had a bit more of that type of RPG-ness in it.
Well, Fallout is more focused on dialogue.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas with this one, it was more, you can do quests in multiple ways, but it's not the same approach in the way you take different ways. But what I really liked about this game is, and I guess we can start talking about gameplay a little bit, is the fact that it's very open to what you can do with your character. Unlike other games where you, from the very beginning in a lot of games, determine what kind of character you want. Do you want a rogue? Do you want a thief? Do you want a warrior? Do you want a mage? And you kind of get stuck down that path, and that becomes your archetype, and you can't really do anything else with it. Whereas with this, you can make a character whatever you want. And whilst, to be fair, it's a little harder later on to get certain skills up to the same degree, you can do that if you want to, start specializing in bows and arrows halfway through the game. No problem, go do that. If you want to start doing something else, go do that. The game lets you do that, and I think that's so cool, because you can really role play properly without kind of screwing yourself over and putting 50 hours into it and going, shit, I've just made a character that really sucks. And that actually reminds me of Oblivion. And in one of my Oblivion playthroughs, I completely gave up. In fact, I think it was my very first Oblivion playthrough, because in that game, so the predecessor to Skyrim, much like in this one, you would level up based on the skills that you would use. So if you kept, for example, using archery, you'd level up, and then after certain points in archery, you'd go up one actual level in the game. But with Oblivion, enemies were also leveling up according to you. So they were always the same level as you, practically. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Man.
So what happened was, like an idiot, I'm like, oh, wow, there's a little cheat. I can just keep running around to build up my athletics and my swimming and all these useless skills that had absolutely zero use in the real game. And I'd level myself up artificially. So I'd be like this overhyped level. But the moment I ran into like a wolf or something, or a rat or whatever, like tiniest, lowest enemy, I would just get ripped to bits.
And
so I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a bug. But...
yeah, and that's one of the points I had, is that the fact that they didn't take the enemy scaling from Oblivion is such a plus for this game.
It's much better.
It does mean you can explore and you don't feel like you're leveling yourself up in the wrong way.
But it is mixed. It's a mix. Sorry on that one. So I find it really weird, to be honest. I actually got to the point where I don't understand what the scaling really works like, because I'm level 71 in my current playthrough, and in one quest line, as in within a few 10 minutes worth of gameplay, I'd be versing enemies that were really high level, clearly, because my pimped up broken game weapon takes multiple hits to take them down. And then, a minute later, it's like enemies that get taken down instantly. It's really weird. I actually do not understand how it scales in some areas.
There is no scaling in the game.
Well, no, but you do, like, for example, Revenant Dragons only appear if you're a certain level. Like if you're level 70.
Oh, yeah, but that's
like
different.
That kind of stuff,
that's just like threshold points where events will start to happen. That's not
but I mean, it's hard to figure out what's where. Like if you go into an older area where the enemies are still, because you know what I mean. Like it's an open map, so I still don't know to this day if you go to a particular cave, if that cave is capped or if that cave isn't capped. I don't know. It's odd the way they do it. It's not a big deal. It's not. But it's not like the kind of game where you go to a specific location and you know 100% for a fact there's a level 1 rats. And it's always level 1 rats.
So just to finish what I was saying is that the fact that the enemies don't scale, but they still manage to find a really great balance in how those high-level enemies, and when you're exploring, I think they balance the line perfectly in that regard. Because there's no times, like, you'll come across an enemy, like, okay, that enemy's too powerful for me, but that happens in every RPG. Then you're like, okay, that is not the area for me to tackle right now. I'll come back once I'm further in the game. But I just think that it's balanced really, really well, and it was like Oblivion was a shit show in that regard. If you did it wrong, so
are you sure that there's no scaling at all?
Yes.
Okay, because it just seems like there's a lot of discussion that there is, but it's subtle or whatever. But anyway,
everything I've ever read say that enemies don't scale.
No, you're the expert. I'd trust you. Just on your point though, Mike, at the start around, like the core of what an RPG is, right? Like being able to do what you want, play with the character you want. I don't know why I always do this, but every game I play, if there's a thief, I always pick the thief. And then like if there's weird classes, I'll pick the weird class or whatever. And then I end up just playing like basically a melee build. Like, and I always hamper myself. So I did exactly that in this game. I picked the thief, and I have not stolen one thing in the entire game. I finished like the main quest, and I didn't steal one single thing. And it's just, I don't know why I do it. And then I just became like I want to smash people with, an axe or something like that. Like, I don't know.
But it's good the game lets you do that.
It is. Because other games really punish me for doing that because I've like put myself backwards massively. Like I need to use the steal mechanic. And I don't know. I'm too nice. Like we'll touch on it if you're still around for the Mass Effect Legendary Edition one. But I keep on seeing this Paragon stuff. Everything I do, Paragon +2, Paragon +5 or whatever.
Yeah, goody two shoes.
And I found out that I'm a goody two shoes. I'm always like the nice guy.
Interesting. I thought he'd go renegade, but yeah.
No. That's in real life. I'm a renegade.
So can we talk a bit about the main quest?
No.
Yes.
So the main quest is it's a huge improvement from Oblivion, no doubt. But as I think Mike can attest to, it still doesn't have any real sense of urgency whatsoever to it.
None.
And can feel very run-of-the-mill sometimes. It's still fun, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the next game if they actually make it so they entice players more to actually tackle that as opposed to just, I'm going to leave that for 100 hours like Mike did and don't even go visit the Greybeards until that point. And look, the final boss is probably, is probably a bit crappy, but there's some epic moments. And I enjoyed it, but ultimately it's a bit of a forgettable story. But I do like Parthenax, that dragon at the top of the mountain.
Cool, yeah.
So I wasn't going to say it was a dragon, but now that you've already spoiled it, but spoiler alert for everyone. Because I was playing the game. I don't know anything. I try to go dark on all these games. So I don't know. And then Swinny tries to, ruin it for me by saying, oh, this character dies or this happens or whatever. But when you got to the top of the mountain and Parthenax, is that right, Swinny?
Yeah.
Yeah, when it was a dragon, I was like, oh shit, it's a dragon. I was like, surprise. I was like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, this is cool. So Swinny, I didn't mind the story that much. I normally hate the stories in these kind of games. I thought it was serviceable. It wasn't great, so I totally agree with that component of it. It's just honestly, the thing that just makes me go, it's so strange the way they structured it. You play through the whole main quest, you finish the game, and then you're just left at the mountain. And it's like, okay, there's no credits or anything. I don't know. It's some OCD thing for me where it's like, okay, I finished it. Give me credits. And then I'm back into the game normally. It just feels weird that the game opens with credits.
But that's the thing about it. You don't need it to... You almost don't even... It's almost not even the main quest. You know what I mean?
Agree
it's
with
just
that. Agree
another
with that, yeah.
quest in the game.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of how they handled it. I feel like Swinny's saying, they you know what? Just get rid of the main quest. At that point. So,
but then you don't have an underlying.
But you didn't even use
story
that
arc
as an underlying story arc, right?
Yeah, you don't. But I mean, some people need that underlying story.
I think
arc.
the more challenging thing would be to create some narrative out of the quote unquote side quests.
So those quote unquote side quests, okay, probably the meat of the game, are the guilds. So, the guilds. This is Skyrim. So. Fuck the main quest. This is the content that people love Skyrim for.
That's true.
So this is the real Skyrim.
My favorite, and it's not going to be everyone's favorite, but I love the College of Winterhold. The setting of that is with this giant college on the edge of this icy cliff. It's awesome. One of my favorite quest lines ever. The Thieves Guild is awesome. Some really cool twists that go on in there. Great rewards when you finish it all. Honestly, all the rewards from these guilds, the ultimate ones, are just, it make it worth it, and that's that's a big part of it. And the Dark Brotherhood, of course, is also great. Really cool, really humorous. I don't think it tops Oblivion's version. I think that one's just a bit more memorable with some really, really cool moments in it. But overall, all the guilds are great. I forget the name of what's the guild in Whiterun. Oh god, the White Mains and the Greybeard. Not the Greybeards, the White Mains and the... Yeah, anyway, the Whiterun one, that one's probably not as memorable, but it's got its cool moments. And yeah, let's look, to me, that is the meat of the game. And, I tried to push integot to focusing on that rather than the main quest, but I understand why you wanted to do the main quest if you had limited time to play through. So,
I will get through those. I think that's the beauty of the game as well, that you can kind of go at your own pace, do your own thing. It's like Mike spending 100+ hours not doing the main storyline and getting a lot out of the game. Yeah, I mean, that's the...
But I finished it. I finally finished it.
That's cool. Yes. I know I'm a whinger, and, this is expecting too much, especially that the game is so hacky, it feels like, from an engine point of view, but God, I wish that there was some kind of cross-platform save in this game.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Because, I really want to play it. Sorry, go on.
That guild was called the Companions.
That's right, the Companions, yes. So I didn't want to spoil anything about it by saying other things, but it's worth doing it.
Yeah, I really want to play this on PC because it's great playing on the Switch. It really supports my lifestyle, just with the kids and everything. But, just sometimes I want to boot it up in the highest quality and play on the PC. And I've seen it on PC. It looks amazing on my PC, but... it's a bit I don't know. I was thinking about it the other day. Maybe I should just start again on PC. Because because you kind
It's
of
a
don't
different
need the main
feel.
quest, right? So
No, you
No.
don't. You just
Yeah.
muck around. It's a different feel on different platforms.
Yeah.
To me, the most memorable one I think was probably the original one back in 2011 on 360, and that's because I was playing it on a TV, and the immersion just felt so much more immersive than playing it on the Switch. I played the most recent one on the Switch, so I did practically everything other than I think I'm doing halfway through Dawn Guard, and then I just have the Dragonborn DLC left. And I think that's kind of it. And that was all on the Switch. But on the 360, there were just some of the moments felt so much more memorable. And even little things like I remember when I finished the College of Winterhold, and you become this pretty powerful mage by that stage, because I had sort of pumped a lot of points into that. And then I was kind of just wandering around the landscape, and I came across this shack in the middle of the snow, in sort of this somewhat foresty area. And then the aurora started shining in the sky, and it was just that really awesome moment where you felt like you were really role playing the game, like you were this mage that was, in solitude in the middle of the wilderness, just away from everything and the conflicts happening around there. And that level of immersion was probably one of the greatest things I remember in any game. And I feel like you don't get that on the Switch as much. And that's just because it's hard to immerse yourself on a tiny little screen that's in front of you. So it's worth experiencing in other platforms.
Yeah,
what's up?
those organic moments that you're talking about, that's what makes this game really special to me. You're just walking around this mountain path, and suddenly, like, there's this dragon battle of two dragons fighting each other, appears out of nowhere, and like a lot of that stuff is unscripted. Just some of it leads to a lot of jank, but just being in a village and suddenly a dragon attacks a village, and you're like, oh my god, what the hell, out of nowhere?
Yeah.
It just makes the game feel so epic in that regard. And there's a lot more to that, but the way they handled the dragons with those unscripted moments is just, it's so special.
Yeah, and I think I texted you guys early into the actual playthrough of the game, and I'm like, I kind of get Skyrim. It's kind of like, it's pretty fucking cool. I think part of it is because I was just like going around doing random shit and just like running into giants and they're just destroyed.
Beaten up,
yeah, I was like level
destroyed.
10 or something, just getting pummeled, and I was like, okay, this game's pretty wacky, pretty cool. I don't know, I can't get past the traversal. It drives me nuts. But having said that, the other quirkiness of the engine, it I don't know how they do it, but it does feel charming, not frustrating. And it's maybe it's just because like the game has so much interactivity, like bizarre interactivity. Like you'll pick up stuff, and then I'll come through like 40 hours later or 20 hours later, and it's still there. I'm like, what the hell? Like, and it feels like it's exactly where I placed it. I don't know. Like the engine is pretty wacky and pretty cool the way that they've built it.
The one annoying thing about things being where you place them is if you kill a dragon. I still have a dragon in Whiterun from the start of the game, just sitting there in the middle of the road.
What?
Yeah.
What, the one that you go in the fort to try to kill?
No, it's just the very beginning of the game. It happened to get attacked by a dragon. I don't remember if that was scripted. And there's just a dragon. I'll send you guys screenshots.
And just run away from it.
Every time the area gets loaded, there's a dragon in the middle of it. And it happened to me on the other platforms. It happened to me in the College of Winterhold. I had a dragon that would always just appear in the middle of the path whenever I'd load, just like flopping in. So yeah, it's just bugs like that. But it's still good.
In terms of presentation, look, the music in this game is just epic. Like the main theme with the chanting, like da da dun da da dun da da dun, like all that stuff. It's just
very memorable.
Makes you feel, it's exhilarating. It's like, man, I'm on an epic adventure now.
Yeah.
And look, the game looks nice. Especially what the work they did with the special edition. But I'd say that it's almost like it puts up a good front, because when you start examining a lot of the finer details, the game is, the presentation graphics is probably one of the weaker points, but I think it handles it really well. It's like, okay, this engine, at this point, we've probably done everything we can do to this engine. But I think the other thing with the presentation is I love the look of the land, but there are some points when you kind of feel like you want a bit more variety because obviously it's snow. It's snow and cold and it's cold mountains.
Skyrim.
It's the setting. Yeah, I'm not saying that. But sometimes I think the blue tones can get tiresome after a while. That's why when you go to a place like Blackreach, the first time you go there and you're like, oh my God, there's this awesome underground area and it feels really magical, but it's also because it feels different. It's a nice change of pace from being out in the snow and the mountains and that. And that's why I also really like, while we're not really so much reviewing the expansions, but Solstein, the Dragonborn expansion, takes you to a completely different looking
forward to that
area that's like a change. And it's so in terms of the main, I guess, area, that's probably one of the weaker parts for me, but it didn't negate the fact that I love this game. Like, this is one of my favorite games I've ever played. So.
Yeah, I went on I thought I was on the main quest, right? And I actually was not. Like, I ended up, maybe it was in the Dragonborn quest, or I don't know what it is, but it was like I ended up in Oblivion. Is that right? Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Oblivion as in you ended up in like the hellscape world, or what?
No, I was like, I got shipped off on the ship.
That'd be Solstein.
Yeah. So I ended up doing a whole bunch of stuff over there, right? And I was like, whoa, where am I? What am I doing here? But I actually thought it was really cool and thought it was like one of the parts that I liked the most about the game.
Yeah, Solstein has a very Morrowind feel to it, from what I've played of Morrowind.
Yeah, Morrowind, that's right. Yeah, that's what it was from. Yeah.
Yeah,
so not Oblivion, Morrowind, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like, it's nice to have a change, and Dragonborn is one of my favorite expansions I've ever played. I think it does some great stuff.
Looking forward to it.
But look, for me, just some general stuff is, while it's very iconic, the opening of the game, and I'm okay with the way that the game opens, I think after that exciting intro, it feels like things grind to a halt a bit. And I think that's why a lot of people do kind of like it. That's why I think I put the game down for a while after the first couple of hours, because it doesn't feel like the sense of urgency. So that's, to me, one of the things that, now that I love the game, I kind of, obviously you get past that. I really like the Radiant Quest idea, how, they give people stuff, repeating quests, but then they change the triggers, they change the criteria for them. It's a really, really cool idea to give people more content. And the inventory system. So it's a really big step up from Oblivion, but there's times when you got a lot of stuff, there's times when it can just be a bit of a hassle to manage.
Dude, it's so annoying. It's so annoying. I don't agree with you, man. I was losing the plot. It was actually starting to piss me off with the game so much.
Wait, you don't agree with me? It's a big step up from Oblivion.
No. They said it's like it's okay, but it can get frustrating. I'm like, it's super frustrating for me.
Okay, I don't have an issue with it.
Oh, maybe I just collect too much shit. Like, I'll see stuff, I don't even know I need it. I might as well go get it.
Well, I warned you about that. I said, hey,
you did.
There's going to be times when you learn, I don't need these.
I know. I never used any.
Do you have a home, though? Did you get
I didn't get a home.
See, that's the difference.
Dude.
I hoard and then I
you didn't get a
teleport
home
back there.
Oh,
that
wow.
was a huge
Can I just say,
difference.
far out, like, I had my Thane, right? Wait, no, it's not my Thane. What do they call them people? They follow me around?
It's a companion, like
Companion.
Lydia.
Companion, right?
Did you have Linda?
And she freaking died.
Lydia.
Sorry.
She died.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's because you didn't protect her.
I didn't know she could fucking die.
Well,
I was like, what the fuck? So I was like going through...
That's on you.
I was going through a really hard
Exactly.
area. And then I'm like, where the fuck is she? And, it's kind of happened before where she's disappeared a bit and then she respawned, right? So I'm like, oh, she's going to respawn. So I played another couple of hours or whatever, got through the area. And then I'm like, oh, she's dead. And all my stuff as well was with her.
No.
Man, you could have gotten a home right
bitch.
after you did like the Whiterun stuff.
That's what I did, yeah.
And
I
then you just
dumped
dump
her home.
You get a home right after you do the Whiterun stuff, and you can just dump all your stuff in there.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I saw about that, but then I was like, nah, I'll get on with it.
Oh, I
Well,
have. Oh
that's
my
your
god,
fault
my
then,
game
'cause
is.
Then that's the inventory problem is due
No.
to you being
I've
crappy.
been storing it at that pub in Whiterun.
But stuff can go missing.
I know, I heard
Yeah,
that,
if you
but
don't have
I
an
just
official
rolled the
house,
dice.
yeah.
I rolled the Bethesda dice.
The reality is, you almost
and I've
never
got
use them
I got all that
again,
stuff. I know that's the thing. It's like digital hoarding. I never
It's
even use
total
any of the other
hoarding.
stuff.
No, to be fair, I did use some other stuff, but it's so rare that you go back to really need it that it's just a hoarding thing. It's a problem.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool game. I have to say, and just put my bias on the table right at the end of the, the segment. Like fantasy as a setting is always like negative 1 or 2 points for me out of 10. Like there's just something about fantasy. I don't know. It just doesn't gel with me, man. It just doesn't click with me. So I don't know. Look, I'll say this though. Starfield, I'm like a day one person on that now because of this game. So that's huge credit to this game, right?
Okay.
My final thought on this is that I think, to me, Skyrim is the most successful RPG ever
Ooh.
in terms of blending true RPG mechanics with a mainstream appeal. To me, it's the most successful example of a game that's ever done that, where it's like, because it is a true RPG in many ways. A lot of people, it's an RPG. Like it is a real true RPG, but it's got that mainstream edge to it.
Are they saying?
I can't think.
Just sorry to interrupt. Are they saying it's not an RPG because you're not selecting the sort of progression? It sort of naturally evolves, or
No, it's because people are wankers. That's why. So to me, it's the best example of a game that's blended those two sides ever. Like I can't think of a game that has done it that well. And as I said, it's not flawless, but it's a game that makes you feel like you've gone on a grand adventure, which I really appreciate.
That's true. Very cool game. I'm going to be so interested to see where you guys think this should place in the top 6. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Still pissed about Portal 2 not being part of the consideration. Look at this prick. All right, let's get on to our next feature. So what I wanted to cover was Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So that came out, when was it? Thursday? So the 14th of May. I was kind of like debating whether like to get this game or not. I was always going to get it eventually. It was just like, oh, do I get it now or do I get it later? And I think it's just, like I got it for a pretty decent deal. I was happy with the price, and I do need to start ticking off my dirty dozen in terms of my resolutions. This is one of the 12 games that I need to play, Mass Effect.
Well, one of the 12, it's 3 games you gotta play.
No, it's very clear. I only have to play Mass Effect 1.
Okay.
That is true.
That's fair enough.
Smart goals, specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and timely. And yeah, look, like, so I'm just, for clarity, I'm about 3 hours, no, actually 4 hours, I think, into the game. I'm a Spectre now. That's like early in the game. And I am actually already past where I got up to on the 360 version of this game when I bought it.
Woohoo! Progress.
And man, I'm really into this game.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, dude, you guys know that I skip things. I skip dialogue. I listen to podcasts instead of the dialogue. I just move on. I'm like, whatever. These stories in games are just lame. What, dude? I'm just
that's a loaded statement.
Okay, I just got to be real. I got to keep it real. I got to keep it real. Like the standard of stories in video games is way lower than in really good films that I watch and books that I read. It's just reality.
So skip it all, he says.
No, most games are like pretty shit stories. Now, I don't know why.
I wonder why the stories are shit given he's skipping them all.
Yes.
No, but that's what happens, right? People don't care about them, so they don't invest in them. They don't sell 1 billion copies because it's got a good story. This game, I don't know, something about the setting, the races, the lore. I am like literally going through every single dialogue option, all the dialogue trees.
Welcome to Mass Effect.
Cool. Yeah, I'm so into this game, man. I'm like really into it. A few things off the top though. Number one, how the hell, and I'm going to start calling out people, how the hell is anyone saying they've done a review of this game? Like I'm saying Mass Effect Legendary Edition. You have not done a review of this. And there's some outlets, including Australian outlets, that are saying they've done a review and scored it. And honestly, that's just fucking bullshit. Like,
but the
when
thing
did they
is
get the codes? Yeah.
No, but the
Tuesday
thing is, right,
the earliest that anyone got a code for it.
Yeah, but the problem here is, what criteria is there for review of a remaster?
Well, okay, I'll tell you this, Swinny. Like 24 hours, and then you're doing a video and editing and everything like that. So playing it for like at most 8 hours, 10 hours is not enough to review something. That's sorry.
No, but I'm saying that if you've already experienced a game before and you know how it plays out.
Yeah, but you couldn't have played you couldn't have even played 10% of the game.
No, but if it's a remaster, can you not? That's why I'm asking. Like, I'm not saying that that's okay. I'm asking, what is the criteria for reviewing a remaster? Is it an end-to-end playthrough?
No, I don't. I'm not even saying necessarily that. I just think if you've played a substantive part of the game and seen a substantive part of the changes that they've made to the game, right? To effectively evaluate, what's the point of doing a review of a remaster? It's to say, well, the game's already come out. Is it worthy that they've remade this and remastered it, and how they've remastered it? Have they improved it? Have they made it worse? Have they made it lighting worse? All this kind of stuff. What changes have they made? What have they left out? All these kind of nuanced things, right? It's not an exact science, Swinny, right? But I can say when a game is released for code on Tuesday and it's like 3 50-hour RPGs, and then you put a review out and give it a score. And by the way, the scores determine how much people sometimes get paid as bonuses in these studios. To be honest, that's just wrong. And now, should EA have released the game when they hadn't give the codes out? That's a different question, right? You don't have to put a review out. No one's forcing you. No one's putting a bullet, like a gun to your head. And I have to give a lot of credit to outlets like IGN, who would have a huge amount of pressure to put a review out. And they've come out very openly and said, we got the game on Tuesday. There's no way we can review it by Thursday, Friday. It's impossible, right? So what we're saying is we're just doing impressions, review in progress. This is what we think so far. I actually give them a huge amount of credit. Like, they don't get a lot of credit, IGN, GameSpot, these kind of outlets, but they haven't come out and said what the review is. There are a bunch of outlets that have said what the reviews is. And for me, I put a red flag on all of those outlets. Like, if they're saying they've done a review, they can't. It's impossible, man. It's like watching a trailer and then reviewing the movie. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, you've seen key parts of it, but you haven't experienced it enough to be able to give a review. Anyway, moving on from that. Mike, you bought this game, but you haven't received it yet?
Correct, yeah. So I am looking forward to getting it.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really fascinating. Maybe we'll touch base like in a month's time when we've both played enough of it to actually give, considered thoughts on the game.
But I also think it would look, this game would look amazing on an LG C1 TV or something. My gosh, it would look incredible on that. If only I had a TV like that, I would totally get this game. Swinny,
are you going to get this game eventually?
I'm not going to buy Mass Effect, says the probably biggest Mass Effect fan on the show. Well, Mike could make an argument for that, but
I thought Mass Effect. I thought Mike was the biggest. When you said that, I thought of Mike as the biggest fan.
I think he's a bigger fan than I am. I felt
really? Okay,
with all the marketing. And I've got all the T-shirts and the toys and the books and the figurines, but I still think he's probably a bigger fan than I am.
Okay.
To some extent.
Of course, I'm going to get it. I just with this, I just wanted to give it a bit of time. I just wanted to give it a bit of time, get a few patches out there. Yeah. So I'm not in a rush. So
do it for the podcast. Do it for the podcast. But
hey, do it for the podcast. You'll see the next segment what I've done for the bloody podcast.
okay. Mike isn't. Mike is going to bail on us.
No. I want to hear this now. Let's get onto it.
No. I haven't even covered what I think of the game.
Oh god.
Oh god. Oh, thanks, Mike. So the other one that's really weird, Mike, and you've observed this, and so have I. The game already seems to be out of stock in a bunch of stores.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
Now,
even online, I was struggling to get it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was going in and out of stock at Amazon. Now, I'm not sure if they've just like run against the wall on this game. Like, there's massive patches. The reason why they didn't release the review codes is, I think from like even a Cyberpunk perspective, they've learned, okay, just hold it back. Like, don't give people a broken game just because they want to review it. And even when I've played it, there's just to be clear, I haven't played enough of the original games to know, is this a bug in the 360 version that's carried over to this game, or is this a new bug? Because I'm playing it and I'm like, whoa, man, these characters, the way they're talking and stuff, I know, this is people are gonna come at me for this stupidity, but I was like, I can't even tell that much of versus like Andromeda. Like, some of the characters, their eyes are like looking like off center, or
I've heard that some of the work they've done on the faces, like the lips and stuff, actually make it look weirder than the original.
Yeah. So, dude, like I said, I haven't played enough with the original, but having played the original, it never struck me as like odd, the lips moving and everything like that.
I love the way that the facial animation was in the original.
Yeah, I really wish you guys had played this, because I was playing it and I'm like, man, they look like, is this just me? I'm like, am I way too sensitive to this crap now? But their lips look bizarre, and the eyes. It's like sometimes their eyes are like looking down, and it doesn't make any sense. It's like they're looking ominous or something.
There seems to be like a trend in big remasters. So the same thing happened with the Ezio collection for Assassin's Creed, and they patched it. So
Yeah.
they made like the first run. So a lot of it's also sometimes the lighting, and they try to improve the
Okay.
lighting, but it suddenly like makes everything look really more artificial than it was before.
Yeah.
So I definitely think the game will see patches to improve that stuff.
And I'll say, as a person who just jumped into this game, it's so awesome. I'm like loving it so far. Like I find that it's going to be so easy to get through the first game. Like I'm just like balls deep into this game. I love it.
Balls deep in Mass Effect.
It's just like man, it's just such a fun game. I get it. It's just like when I was starting to play Dark Souls, I'm like, okay, I get why people love this game. And sci-fi, you guys know I'm a huge sci-fi fan. Like I've watched every episode of Deep Space Nine, The Next Generation, Voyager, like Star Wars. I know so much about, like I'm a huge sci-fi fan. And, as I was saying in the last segment around Elder Scrolls, fantasy just never does it for me. So I don't know why, but sci-fi just like, it's like it adds an extra few points out of 10 for me. So, this is an early wild claim, but I don't know, man. I reckon this trilogy, one of these games could easily hit my top 10. Like already like 3 to 4 hours in, I'm like, damn, this is like, and I think it's also that for me, it's supposedly they fixed the combat or like improved it a lot.
Yeah, they have.
I actually bounced out of the first game because I played the combat and I'm like, this is so frustrating. This is like, I'm clicking in and out of the wall. Like it's so freaking annoying. And this game is super annoying as well. It feels very old. Like I was like running up to the wall and I'm like, sometimes the cover would work, sometimes it won't. It feels very unpredictable of when you can or can't go into cover. I don't know. It just feels very janky and stuff like that. I just got to go to get my head around it and how it works. I'm already getting a bit better at the combat, but yeah, now I'm just like thinking, I don't know how to level up my character and whether I should look at, are pistols good, assault rifles, what I should do.
What class did you choose, by the way?
What classes were there?
So you get like, I can't remember, but like, are you going biotic? Are you going with purely soldier? Are you going with tech?
Oh, well, so I don't know if this answers the question, but I didn't change my character at all from the start.
The default. What's
So
the
it's
default class?
probably like soldier or something.
Yeah, it's a soldier. It's a soldier.
Class, yeah.
Oh man, the biotic stuff in the Mass Effect games is awesome. If at some point you can try that out, that'd be cool.
Okay. No, like I don't know about Mass Effect, but something about it is the character to me is like that's who it is, and I called him Juan Shepherd. Like that's who it is to me. It's like it just looks like that. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even bother with the character creator because I feel like it doesn't feel like Mass Effect.
I'm the same. I like the default male Shepherd. Yeah.
And actually, it's funny. I almost always play as female characters, but the female Juan Shepherd, she doesn't look right to me. It just doesn't. I don't know. There's something about it that just doesn't click. Like I just don't get it. So yeah. No, I'm really, really loving it. Just looking forward to playing it more. To be honest, pretty simply. I'm really looking forward to you getting it, Swinny, because I think you have very deep on understanding how the games play, and I know you're very not opinionated, but you've got strong views on the combat of the first one and just the RPG elements. So I'd love to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Probably in 1 or 2 months, depending on when the patches hit. So
yeah, and I think by then maybe we should just loop back to it again anyway, because I would have played through the first one, and Mike surely would have played through a few of them, so we could just really give our thoughts on it. Do you want to go to the final segment?
Yeah, so this week we saw the release of the first expansion for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is Wrath of the Druids.
First of many.
First of 2 confirmed.
Oh, yeah, you heard their commentary on the financial call. I think they're going to milk the hell out of this game.
Yeah, but whether or not that means full expansions or just like your seasonal events, like they've been doing, is another thing.
Okay.
There has been some leaked info about new areas related to like the mythological side of the game, which would be cool. But there's two confirmed expansions. This is the first of them. The second I'll mention at the end. But yeah, so it came out on Friday, which was the 14th. Just to correct you from a previous segment. When
Oh yeah, I
Majestic
said
came
Thursday,
out.
didn't I? Yeah, you're right.
So it's only been 2 days.
Yeah, wow.
And I've 100% of this whole
No.
expansion.
Okay, can I just say, yeah, I know it's a different game, but Mass Effect Legendary Edition, you can see the platinums, and the thing that I really liked about it is every hour that went past, the ratio of how many people have completed the trophies was changing just as people were playing it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, some people have already platinum Mass Effect 1 on the PS4, PS5, right? It was
Yeah.
like 0.1%. I'm like, these maniacs, who are they? And I'm like, yeah, we're talking to one of them.
Well, that's 20 hours. That's feasible.
20
But,
hours to platinum it, really? I thought it would take longer.
Oh,
I guess if you know what you're doing.
If you do Insanity from the get-go, then probably not. But anyway,
wow.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla,
Yeah.
Wrath of the Druids. So this expansion is set in Ireland, revolving around Ireland, the story of hiking Flansina, and revolving around a cult of Druids, hence the name. You can undertake this quest pretty much at any point in Valhalla's main storyline. It's very separate from anything that's going on in the main quest over there. And from a storyline perspective, the scale of the story, of the narrative, is actually pretty big. But it does, I will say, play out pretty predictably. There's some fun characters. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the story. The ending is a bit ridiculous, but it is what it is. I mean, it's kind of, the ending's very Assassin's Creed, so that's kind of fitting. But that setting, that island, so the map is massive. It's probably the size of 2 of Valhalla's regions. So this is an expansion in terms of size, definitely. And it's absolutely gorgeous. So you've got rolling hills, cliffs. It feels very distinct from England. There's lots of crazy bogs and, where Druid hallucinations happen and stuff. So it's absolutely gorgeous. And the fact that I've got a nice new TV and I'm able to see this game in HDR and everything, it's really, really great. In terms of content, so that's some interesting new stuff. So they've added trade outposts that you capture, and those produce materials, and then you use those materials to complete trade missions and increase the Dublin's renown. So Dublin's like your headquarters in the game. And as you increase renown, you get extra, cool goodies and stuff like that. There's what they call Trial of the Morrigan, which is like little combat challenges against those crazy druids and werewolves and like hallucinations and stuff. It's really interesting with that is that I have a certain play style in combat encounters where the first thing I'll do is explode this massive jar of poison and poison all the enemies, and it's like I use that. That's like my go-to.
You're always playing in like such a sneaky way.
Well,
in all these games, it's always like it's a very underhanded way.
Yeah, so this is that's my
all
go.
Fair. All is fair. Yeah.
True.
That's like my go-to to open up combat encounters. But these druids are impervious to poison in this game, so I actually had to play differently, which was
They've been
actually
looking at the data
cool.
for you.
It was pretty cool. It's like everyone's abusing the poison in this game, so let's make these enemies immune to it. So they added royal demands. So these are missions you pick up from like pigeon coops that have optional objectives that like don't get seen, don't get hit, only kill the specified target. And this is really, really awesome. This is what I think people are going to love because it brings it more to the core of Assassin's Creed, especially the older games when you had the 100% synchronization optional objectives. And it's just, it didn't change the way I really play because I still play stealthily in these games, whereas a lot of people in these newer games have moved to running in, just killing everyone, just murdering. If you want the extra goodies that come from those objectives, then you have to actually, play stealthily in that. And it includes a whole nother set of assassination targets. So for anyone that's played the last couple of games, like the Order of Ancients, where it gives you a web of people that you need to go hunt for clues, follow hints, and then track people down. And if you kill one person, that might give you a clue for another person. And they're part of that druid sect called, or cult called the Children of Danu. So they're tied into the main storyline as well as some of those optional. Those people are optional. But if you take out the whole web of the targets, you get an absolutely awesome reward. I definitely do it. Like, because you don't have to do it to complete the actual storyline. But oh my god, like I wish I could talk about it, but it would spoil it. So
Tell us offline. I want to hear.
you get lots of new gear, weapons. They added like sickles, so you can double wield, I should say. You can ride a giant thick Lynx in this game, and this thing is thick. Like you look at it behind.
Lynx, that's a good show title.
And I'm so glad that they made it so you can ride something other than the stupid horse. It plays the exact same. The icon on the stamina still has a little picture of a horse, but you're riding this giant thick Lynx. It's awesome. And they also brought some of the canned stone puzzles, the standing stone puzzles back, but they're all easy in this one. I enjoy them. So the other thing, I just want to mention, while it's not technically part of this DLC, some of the recent updates I hadn't got to yet, so I just wanted to give some thoughts around that. So they had a whole bunch of new abilities, which are actually pretty good. So I made a bit of a joke when we talked about them in our transmogrification segment a little while back, that it doesn't make sense to automatically loot enemies you kill from afar, but it's actually pretty smart. They make it so your eagle automatically goes and then picks up the stuff. So it's like, oh man, they actually do it really cool.
You know, there's some prick who's in like a boardroom and they're all like on the whiteboard, how the fuck are we going to do this for these pricks out there like Swinny? They've probably just got your image. Fuck him with a poison. Got to make these fucking pricks impervious to poison. Oh, fuck. He's going to ask us. He's going to put us in his review. He's played every fucking one of these games, the prick.
And... about the transmogrification, you know, when that stuff came out, they're like, oh, it costs 50 silver to do this. Man, now that I've gone back and kind of realized, like, because it'd been a little while since I played Valhalla at that point. I couldn't remember exactly how much silver you got all the time. Man, it's nothing. Like, I had like 20,000. No, it's just the main currency in the game. Like, it's cost nothing. Like, it was such an overblown thing. Wow. It was really nothing. Like, I'm like, oh my god. I even mentioned that, they should have done better with this. It's like, it's absolutely nothing in the game.
Okay.
So yeah, just look, overall, honestly, this is actually one of the best DLCs they've ever put out.
Wow, okay, be cool.
Yeah, it's just, man, the amount of content, the size, it's just really, really cool. It is very expensive. It's about $38 if you just buy it by itself. But you are getting about a 15 to 20 hour experience out of it. So you're getting almost the experience of a whole full retail game in terms of the length of it. Now, I know length isn't always the way you judge performance.
Yes, it is.
Well, yes, it is.
In my case, it is.
But it's, look, honestly,
a lack thereof.
If you want a more Valhalla, you'll love it. You know, I just think, I do think the Fate of Atlantis DLCs for Odyssey are probably just above this in terms of just. Like,
you had to bring Odyssey back in. You have to bring in the negativity. The negative comments are going to come.
So
wait, Swinny, can we map this out? So Valhalla, that's like a $70, $80 game in Australia, yeah?
Well, I mean, it was 100 when it came out, so.
Yeah, but you can get it pretty easily for like $80.
Yeah, but I like to judge things based on what the actual cost was when I purchased it.
You paid it for $100.
It was more than $100 because I got the season pass with it. So
yeah, no, but that's what I want to break down. So season pass will include this and then the next expansion.
Yeah, the next expansion is the Siege of Paris, and I can't remember when that's due. I think it is still due for this year. So
okay, interesting. Yep, and so that's like $60 Australian. The Druids is like 38-ish. So probably, you know, if you're into the expansions, makes sense to buy the season pass, would you say?
Oh, 100%, easily, yeah.
Ubisoft will be so happy with you, by the way.
So this, look, really, really, a lot of fun. As I said, I 100%ed it. It was a bit of a ride. I started playing it a Friday evening and finished it at like midnight last night. It was like 16 hours. So
yeah, I don't know if you heard that, Mike. Like, because I think you were off the show at the time, but yeah, he's got this DLC and he's already beaten it 100%.
Jeez.
So it's good. What's interesting, they've actually added these two achievements that you cannot get yet. So it's kind of annoying, but they've actually changed it. So they're revolving around these mastery challenges that are coming in a separate free update.
Yeah. But
the achievements are tied to this DLC pack. So I'm like, does that mean you have to buy the DLC pack to be able to get that? It's really, really odd. But
they said free update, right?
It's free update, but generally you only get access to the achievements of DLC pack if you own the DLC. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's really weird
Okay.
because they updated and changed it to upcoming achievement.
Oh.
Like that's what it's called. It was called something else, and they changed it. So some people are annoyed because they can't complete the DLC yet. But it's like whatever, it'll
So,
come down the line.
I
It'll
love
come
how
down the line.
OCD people are in the
Yeah.
achievement space, the Chivo
Anyway,
space.
Wrath of Druids. If you love Valhalla, you'll love this.
Now you know that I'm a huge Game of the Year edition buyer, so I wait until you get a collected version, all the DLC included. Rah rah rah. Did they do this with Assassin's Creed games?
They do it
Yeah.
up front.
What do you mean?
So they don't wait anymore. You buy the special version that's got it all included. Like,
Oh yeah, but I want it for cheap.
So they'll just
I
go
want
on
it for cheap.
special.
I want it for
Well,
cheap.
you'll get
Yeah.
that version on special later.
But then they
okay.
put that stuff on special. Like now, I know you obviously want physical stuff, but generally a lot of that stuff goes on sale digitally. A lot of those
okay.
packs are only digital these days.
Because I've been looking to pick up Odyssey as a bit of a joke and meme, but I can't find a version that's got everything included. So yeah, maybe I'll hit you up,
What
Swinny.
do you mean? There's plenty. Oh yeah, they're all digital. That's why.
Yeah, I don't like digital. So okay, cool. All right, thanks for that, Swinny. So big recommend for you if you liked Valhalla and you want more, worthwhile getting.
Yep.
Thanks, Willie.
Beautiful. All right, let's wrap up the show just in time for Mike to run away from us. Terrible effort, Mike. Next week, we don't have anything scheduled, but I will be reviewing Press Reset, the new Jason Schreier book, and then anything else in the pike, Swinny, that you're aware of?
No, not at the moment. I'll probably just play Cyberpunk, honestly.
Yeah. I think, so we do have that new segment, that's a sexy pitch. I think we might need to exercise that segment and actually use it because E3 is coming up, and I feel like some of our ideas might be taken in E3, so we better get in front of it.
Do you want to pencil it in for next week?
Well, I'm happy to go with mine or
flamingo
with yours,
notebook?
Swinny, if you have yours ready.
I was going to put it in there, and then I decide I'm not an egotistic bastard. I'll ask you guys first.
No, put it in. Put it in.
All right, so Swinny is going to kick off. That's a sexy pitch. The idea of the segment is that we give a realistic pitch for a new game or a continuation of a series and what the game would shape up to be. So Swinny is doing the first one. I guess you will reveal it at the time.
Yes.
And if you have any concept art or anything like that, Swinny, let me know and I can put it on the screen in the video version.
Will do.
With 3D models or anything like that. All right, with that, bye-bye.
Later.